Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well out there. Whether you're listening to us from around the world, if you're listening to the show for the very first time, and where have you been? We're on iTunes, on Spotify, on Audio Boom. We're across a range of different audio platforms. We're of course on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And for our very, very loyal, dedicated listeners that are up very, very late, thank you so much for joining us live, of course, on YouTube. Now, delighted to have back alongside me. I'm really enjoying having him back on the show. I'm sure Jason is actually enjoying the style of football. The wonderful Jason McGovern's back. Jace, how are you? I'm going to unmute you now, Jace. Go for it.
Yeah, not too bad. Pleased to see the governor on the pitch tonight. And, he's just a class apart from everyone else on the pitch, wasn't he? And anyone that thought we were better off without him, I know that's poor opposition tonight, but you just look at him and one person on that pitch absolutely reeked of class, and it was him. Two fantastic goals, and the range of passing for those 65 minutes he was on, just head and shoulders the best player, mate. So I think everyone's pleased that's all died down. I'm sure Sky Sports will still have something running on deadline day about him, but just nice to have all that conversation out of the way, and hopefully over the next few days we focus on more important issues that we've still got to do, but important to get through tonight, and just a good night all round.
Yeah, very much so. Listen, absolutely delighted to also have back on this show. We've got the wonderful Jake Lambert. Poor Jake, I had him on. I think his opening debut was the Everton home game, which now, Jake, to be fair, seems a long, long time ago, thankfully. Great to have you back on after a win.
Oh, mate, yeah, thanks for having me back on. I know, just for the listeners to know, Ricky sort of offered me all the big games, offered me some of the Arsenal ones and Chelsea ones, but I was like, no, I won't come back on. And it's the Europa Conference League playoff second leg. So thanks for accepting my demands.
Well, I
the
try my
European
best.
relegation special.
How can I find the time? How does the British time of 10:30 suit you for a Thursday night in a team that no one's ever heard of, which really sits upon last week? So, Jake, absolutely delighted to have you back on. And we've also got the wonderful Matt Hayes joining us, who runs a great YouTube channel. Matt, how are you?
I'm all good, Ricky. Like saying, actually enjoying a game of football for a change.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be back on with all of you. Pleasure to meet Jake and Jason as well. I'm looking forward to the show.
I'm looking forward to it. Joe, it's funny, isn't it? Having a feel like you're enjoying football again. I might say, I feel a bit embarrassed to say that on a Thursday, of course, when I might be watching Emmerdale or Coronation Street. But I did enjoy that. I mean, Jace, we'll start with you because Spurs are through to the Europa Conference League group phase. My God, that is a real mouthful. A 3-0 win.
Glory nights from there.
Now, for those that are listening live, the draw takes place tomorrow. If you're listening to your commute on the way to work, or you're listening to it on a Friday morning, that draw is actually later on today. Jace, thoughts on the overall game for you? How did you see it?
Like I said, I think Tottenham had total control of the game. Some good individual performances. Kane, like I say, class apart. Hill looks at some really neat touches. Lost the ball a couple of times, but constantly looked to be involved, looked to get on the ball. We even had an assist from Harry Winks. It was such a good night. Probably Romero would be my one little nagging doubt, one or two things that he did. But overall, it was important to go to at least the group stage. And I'm looking forward to now seeing one or two of the younger players get game time in that. I don't think we have to have a team as strong as we saw tonight to go through the group stage, but important time on the pitch for Harry, 60 minutes. Surprised to see Sonny come on. Would have liked to have seen Bergwijn start over Mora, but no complaints tonight. The job was done. Professional performance, total control of the game. Never looked in doubt. We go on, mate.
And we see already that Raj very kindly, we got the song for Bryan Gil, bless him. It wasn't a bad performance from him. We're going to come on to him in a little bit, but we'll come round to you next, Jake, because Spurs, as I mentioned, they're through to the group stage of this Europa Conference League. Embrace it. Maybe it could be fun. The night was always going to be about one man, and he certainly didn't disappoint. What did you make overall, Jake, of the performance from Spurs under Nuno Espirito Santo?
I think it was great, to be honest. I'm a bit dubious about this tournament. I think a lot of us were. But I think actually, considering the season we're about to have, it's actually perfect because, again, for Kane to have that now, he's come back, he's played. It wasn't like it was a big game at the weekend where Sky Sports were all over it. He scored 2 goals. He got it out of the way. And I know, like Jason was saying about surprise Son came on, but I think if he did have that knock that we thought, then maybe having this sort of tournament and just having him there on the bench, he can just prove that he ran around for a couple of minutes and didn't feel anything in a proper game. So that's just promising for the weekend. And I think we've got such a big squad at the minute, full of players that can actually realistically play, that aren't just sort of going to sit there and be on the bench just in case. Then it means we sort of can afford to play on the Thursday, no matter what's coming on the weekend, knowing we could make a full change and it not really affect us.
Agree. Yeah, and I say Nicky on the screen says energy, teamwork, togetherness, work ethic. At last, long may it continue. I know many are saying, hold on a second, it is a Thursday, it is a Europa Conference League game. Matt, for you, I mean, many will feel that tonight couldn't really have gone any better. Kane back scoring. Romero had a quite decent game, I thought. Seemed to speed up at times. Galini, a first clean sheet for him. I can see Jason rolling his eyes. We're going to come on to that very shortly because I know that look is about Romero, who he still isn't warming to just yet. We're going to come on to that. But I thought Gil, to be honest, Matt, I think he looked really, really good, which is encouraging. I know it's early stages. I know it's only against a team that, let's be honest about it, you would want him to have a good game against. But the main thing is that we are through, of course. I know many people weren't. You know, it's funny. I suppose there's so many Spurs fans that actually weren't that overly fussed had we gone through or gone out. I mean, what's your take on it for you, Matt? Are you happy that Spurs have progressed in this competition?
I think this is one of those competitions, and I feel you could put the kind of same swing on the Europa League last season. Is it's only worth getting through this stage and through the group stage if we do go on and win it. So essentially, at this point, we can't quite say if it's worth enough, but we're in the competition, so we may go out and try and win it. And look, if we could pick a trophy, this would probably be the last one that we pick. But a trophy is a trophy, and you need to get that first one to get that taste in the dressing room, and for those players to kind of really feel what it means to win that trophy. Because you know that when they win that trophy, they will love it. It'll be an amazing experience for them. Then they want that next one, and they want that next one, and hopefully that's where it does go. But in terms of the importance of this competition, as cliche as it may sound, I'll be able to answer that question at the end of the season. But I on the point of Bryan Gil, I think the only thing that was really missing from the game tonight was a goal from him, because he was absolutely sensational. He had a few unlucky ones with a few deflections. He did a few sliders as well. But he's just such an exciting talent, and he's one of those players that you struggle not to get up to the edge of your seat whenever he gets on the ball in those attacking areas. And I think what we struggled with a lot last season was, despite the pace and the counter-attack of the Lucases and the Sons and the Bales as well, what we really struggled to do was kind of break down a team and get in behind sides when they were sitting a bit deep. But Gil has this weird sort of ability where he can use that pace to get in behind the low block. We saw quite a few times tonight where the ball was played into the inside left channel, and he was straight off. He was on the way to the ball, and he got an assist for Harry Kane's first goal after that as well. And he's such an exciting player. And if this is the what we're seeing from him, when Nuno said it's going to take a while for him to acclimatise, we need to get him used to everything that he's now settling into. If this is how good he is at this point, I think the sky could be the limit for this kid. But we do need to, of course, kind of hold our breath just a little bit and not get too excited, because we've been here before with so many players where we've just gotten ahead of ourselves really, really early on. But the early signs are promising, and it was another good performance from him tonight. And I wouldn't be too surprised if we see him a bit more consistently in the Premier League team over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Spurs fans getting carried away, Matt. When do we ever do that? When do Spurs fans ever get carried away? My God. Jace, we'll come around to you next, because I thought what was interesting is that if Portugal, that's the fifth strongest team, they've got in terms of Europe, they were, effectively they're the fifth best team in the competition. So it doesn't say a lot, does it, for the standard of quality in the group stages? I mean, what do you think is to come in this competition, which I can tell you're itching, absolutely desperately a part of coming up?
I think
try and contain yourself.
I think we'll win the group comfortably, mate. I think the biggest problem, and we had it last year with some of those games with Lask and people like that, will be complacency and a lack of motivation that we saw. I think Jose alluded to that a couple of times last year, where he said, players that we've got here just don't see themselves as should be playing in this competition. I think he also said that the night we lost to the Convict 11, didn't we? So it was, I think that will be our biggest threat, and that's where you've got to use, hopefully, some of those younger players, and I mean some of the younger ones. I mean your Markandays, your Janelle Bennetts, and use the odd fringe players. But I don't want to see Kane and Son and that in that group stage whatsoever. I mean, if we need players like that to get through the group stage, then it doesn't say much for the squad. So it's a chance to let those players have the rest midweek, get fully prepared for a Premier League game, and let's give some of the young players a chance. I don't mind seeing Oliver Skips and things like that, but to get more and more first team chances. But a bit surprised when Højbjerg come on rather than Skip or something like that tonight. didn't really see the point of that one. But the competition is there. Let's use it to develop. Galini will obviously be in goal. I don't even mind if Alfie Whiteman gets a run out in some of these games, and hopefully we get some excitement from that, of players that do see the competition as something hungry and to make a point in, rather than some of those first team players that we know and we have experience of it in dead rubbers in Champions League games and in Europa League group games, where that intensity drops and that hunger and desire goes, because they think they're better than the competition they're in.
Yeah, Jace, question there on the screen from Zoe Pearson, friend of the show. I have to ask you this question, Jace, because I mean, for you, it is always about, for you Spurs, about playing in a certain brand, a certain style. She said, isn't it great when we don't drop back after going ahead, clean sheets for defence, not constantly under pressure? I'm sure you probably were feeling different about the Wolves game, but do you have confidence in terms of a brand of football? Was it too early at the moment to look into that?
No, I think it's too early. I still think with Reguilon and Doherty, even if Jaffet, and I look at Romero tonight and the problems that I see in him, certainly in the early part of the season, playing in a two, I still think we have the players at the moment defensively that will much sooner suit a back three and two wing backs. And then the problem is then we lose that attacking player. So I think it is going to be that difficult to balance it out for Nuno to get the attacking players that he wants on the pitch. But let's see how we go. I mean, Watford, for instance, at the weekend, that's a game we should be looking to play on the front foot. Whether we're 1-0 up, 2-0 up, 3-0 up, whatever, at 0-0, we should be looking to get on the front foot. And, Paços de Ferreira at home is one thing. But as you said, Wolves pushed us back. Being pushed back is one thing. Choosing to sit back is entirely different. Yeah. So let's get on that front foot at Wolves and see where we go from at Watford and see where we go from there, mate.
I was about to say, I know you think they're headed already to the Carabao Cup tie. I mean, I'm not looking forward to that at the moment, I've got to be honest. But we'll come around to you next, Jake, because question on the screen there from Don Mitchell says, what do you think is the correct balance between the first team and B team players to be playing in the tournament? Have you got thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I think that I'd say probably half and half works, because if you want any of those B players to be able to prove themselves, you want them to have at least played with those main players. So if you've got someone like Sessegnon coming in at the back, and obviously played further up today, but if you've got him playing left back, then you at least want him to have played with like Bergwijn. You want these players to have experience, even a player like Winks who's had experience, but he's basically is now probably a B team player at the minute compared to what we've got. And him to have experience with even having a player like Romero behind him. It's all experience. And I think 50-50 and half is probably about what we need, because otherwise they're chucked into a team with players they've never played before. But if they've played competitively, then a bit like today with Kane coming back, it just sort of gets it out of the way.
Yeah, I do see where you're coming from on that. Matt, coming over to you. Team news, of course, is one of those things where inevitably Spurs, whoever they're playing, regardless if it's Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, or if it's, like say, a silence on a Thursday, always raises in terms of debate, sparks conversation. We saw the team news break, and Harry Kane started his first match for Tottenham Hotspur this season. In the wake of Kane's announcement that he was staying at Spurs this season, Nuno Espirito Santo named the England captain in starting 11 and even captained him for this evening. We saw Christian Romero back after a minor knee injury. Joe Rodon, Cameron Carter-Vickers remained out injured. Eric Dyer came back into the team in what looked to be a back three at the time, while Ryan Sessegnon once again started at wing back after last week's European performance. No Tsungi Ndombele and Serge Aurier, who were not registered for the match, while Moussa Sissoko has not featured in the past week. And as we understand at the moment, try and calm yourselves here, guys, before we release the confetti, is in talks of a move. It is happening. Try and calm down. Try and keep yourselves sane. It could still fall through. It is Tottenham. We've been here before with different managers. So Moussa Sissoko, no offence to you, wish you all the best. That move looks like it's closing in on a move to our opponents at the weekend. Watford. Matt, going back to the team, what did you make of it? Was that what you were roughly expecting?
To be honest, 10 out of the 11 players is what I was expecting, but I was actually quite surprised to see Harry Kane starting today. In hindsight, it was, of course, the right decision because he got those 2 goals. We got to take him off early and, of course, got the tie done before he was gone. And so going back to the point of the best balance to get, I would have rather play a stronger team in the first leg and then be able to press players in the second leg just so you can be a bit more confident and stuff put into it. But look, we're through in the tie nonetheless. It was good to see Romero in there because I know he picked up a knee injury in that away fixture last week, so it's good that it was nothing too serious there. But I mean, there's players in that team that I don't think will be, and I don't really want to be anywhere near that first team this year. And despite his good performance tonight, Harry Winks is one of them. Matt Doherty is an Irishman. I'd love nothing more than to see him go on to be successful at Spurs. I don't think it's going to happen. So, I mean, there was a few players out there that you're not really risking injury for any sort of a Premier League game, but then for other players, you're getting some more minutes under the belt and getting them back towards kind of really being able to get into that first team. Because I think Celso is a player who just hasn't really reached the quality that he should have done in this team just yet. So being able to get minutes like this, and look, it is Paços de Ferreira. And I said last week that we played poorly and it didn't really matter. And I'm going to say the same, that we played well tonight, but it doesn't really matter because it is just Thursday night football. And all due respect to them, that's not the level of opposition we really want. So as much as you can say Celso's good performance doesn't really matter that much, it is still getting him some game time, playing some good football, getting a bit of confidence back, even if it is somewhat of a false sense of confidence. But getting that in there is good, of course, and getting Harry Kane back in that team, grabbing a couple of goals, and the reception he got for the fans and the reception he gave back to the fans, I think was one of the most important things we can take from tonight. Because I think everybody was terrified what was going to happen. And I know Jamie Weir said it in Sky Sports, the Spurs fan base on Twitter probably aren't the best group of people to really gauge the opinion of what's going on with all that. But yeah, it was a clever selection from Nuno, and I will agree with Jake in that I was surprised with some of the subs that came on, Højbjerg especially. I was surprised he went so strong with him, but look, it worked. We've no injuries and on to Watford on Sunday.
I think I was just going to say one thing it might enable us to do is to really take the Carabao Cup seriously. I know we got to the final last year, but Wolves away against the Premier League side, if we fully rotate in those Conference League games and you play your fringe 11, so they're keeping involved, they're ticking over, then that odd week where you do have Carabao Cup against Wolves, there is no reason then not to pick the exact same side that went to Wolves on Sunday. And that might be the benefit. We can have a real go so that if you do pull out Leicester away, Wolves away, Liverpool away, there is no reason to start leaving players out because they can handle, there's only 3 rounds before Christmas, isn't it? Carabao Cup, and then you'd be into the semi-final. So there's only 3 games before this side of Christmas, one of which is in a couple of weeks' time. So that's the advantage. No need to rotate now for Carabao Cup. Go absolutely all out for it, whoever the opponent is.
Yeah. Jay, sticking with you, I mean, you mentioned him at the start of the show, so we'll bring it up now. The first goal for Spurs, and, of course, it had to be Harry Kane. It was actually a goal made, I've got to say, by Harry Winks, which I don't think we're going to hear maybe too often this season. He pulled a superb siren tackle to stop Paços on the break before motoring away, playing a ball over the top for Hill. He picked out Kane, who controlled it before firing home. What was your thoughts, Jason, that hit the back of the net? Was it more relief for Kane that it came that early, or was you always confident in a game like this would be perfect for Kane to score?
Well, I had 4-0 on Kane to score twice at the bookies, so it was a simple one for me. And at that stage, perhaps my worry at that stage was that he'd score more than 2 and that we'd score more than 4. I was surprised that he missed the chance in the opening half a minute because that's one that he would normally tuck away. Perhaps that came a fraction too early, but it's just his composure for that goal. I know it's Paços, but there was no panic, was there? It's just a sidestep, calm finish into the bottom corner, and it was Harry doing what Harry does. I think it was great that he had the one of his own song, and he acknowledged that, didn't he, on the pitch really early on, which you wouldn't normally see him do, but he obviously felt that. Yeah. And it's just, let's get him back running. Unlike Matt, I fully expected him, once that news came through yesterday, I fully expected him to start and to be on the pitch for 60 minutes just to get that first start out of the way and get him up to speed for Watford at the weekend. So, no, it was, to be honest, when he scored, there was no bit of me that thought of what's just gone on or what's been happening over the last 3 months. It was just Harry Kane scored for Tottenham, right? Let's get the game started again and go get the second one. There was none of this, I'm glad he's done it for us and I'll never curse him again or anything like that. It was just a normal run-of-the-mill incident that we've seen Kane do time and time again.
It's interesting you say that because I'll ask you that, Matt. It was a lovely finish, to be fair, and it was a really good goal. You've got to say, the way he was picked out, huge credit to Winks there. I've got to say for winning the ball back and starting the move with some excellent play. How did you feel, Matt, when that ball hit the back of the net? Did that feel any different to you, Harry Kane, than previously scoring for Tottenham? Be honest.
It probably did a bit, but half of it was kind of thinking of how upset the City fans will be seeing that Kane scored for Spurs, just because that kind of bitter side of me. But I think there was a sense of relief, just because I think we all needed that moment where he just got the goal and you're able to celebrate with the fans and all that. And look, I don't think anyone had a fear that it would take too long for it to happen. But with everything that's gone on, I mean, I think every single Spurs fan would have said that we wouldn't expect him to be the type of player to skip training. Whether or not that happened, there's kind of a bit of some discrepancies in that one. But one thing that you could absolutely 100% guarantee, no matter what your opinion on what's going on is when he gets on that pitch, he will give 100%. And he showed tonight that he would by, like Jason said, getting that chance in the first 30 seconds and sticking to form in what he's done his entire career, despite missing that opportunity. He was there for the next one, and he wasn't going to mess that one up either. So there was a slight sense of relief, but it wasn't based on any sort of fear that things would go wrong. But it was just good to see him putting that ball in the back of the net in a Spurs jersey again, and it just feels like we can go on now business as usual and watch him become the third highest scorer in Premier League history this season. Only 21 away.
Yeah, like I said, he's passing tonight at times. It just picks passes like that at the moment, wasn't it? Just one after the other. It was, I'm lucky enough that I saw Hoddle, but some of that passing was Hoddle-esque tonight, and it makes such a difference to the team, and it's astonishing that it comes not just from any player, but it comes from our top goal scorer, who's now the top assister. I mean, it's fantastic. He's Aguero and De Bruyne, and if Manchester City were ever going to sell Aguero and De Bruyne, they would have sold more than 100 million, wouldn't they? So, simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come over to you, Jake. I mean, the second goal for Kane, again, this time it's the Celso that won the ball back, and Kane's shot, it's deflected back to the Argentinian. His effort is scrambled away, and again, Kane, right place, right time, putting the ball in the back of the net. For you, Jake, was there any different feeling of Kane scoring this time around, or was it just the Harry Kane that you've always loved and adored, the guy that's been with us since 11 years old, that has been Tottenham through and through?
That's it, and it was just a normal thing to happen, wasn't it? I was worried a while ago, thinking, when he first scores, what's the celebration going to be like? How much is everyone going to read into that? He did his normal celebration. He sort of cheered it, and then knowing that he was applauding the fans for, singing his song, I just think that's just what he does. He's so good at it. I was thinking earlier in the transfer window when Chelsea signed Lukaku, thinking, cool, that is the sort of player you just want to get. And the fact that we've got Kane back is like, we've got better than that. Somebody there, you just get the ball into the box, give it to him, and no matter what, whether it's a deflection, whatever comes his way, he's putting that ball in the back of the net. And it's just incredible to see what we've got there. And I mean, especially if you think about the fact that obviously during the Euros, he did struggle a little bit with England with sort of finding his way, and they couldn't really play his way. Yeah. So now for him to come back into that Tottenham team with the way he had to play with England, and the fact that all this media pressure is now gone, he must feel like the shackles are off. He can just do what he does now. There's no pressure. There's no ridiculous price tag on him he's trying to live up to. It's not this whole thing about playing at City. He's not playing with these players at England that he's struggling. He's just at home. I mean, I think he'll probably score his record number this season.
You reckon? You back him, yeah? You really do?
I'm backing it. I'll put the bet on. I'll do it after this.
Following Jason down the bookies. Jace, he did get a great reception from the fans, actually before, during the game. And I think, that must give him, some great confidence, because like anything, the way in which the attempted move was facilitated would have left some Spurs fans bitter. The view in the Kane camp, surely this has been the perfect response for them, isn't it? The fact that, would you now expect, I know you discussed this on a couple of shows where at the time his future was up for debate. Do you expect Kane to sign a new and improved deal with Tottenham? Is that what you now expect to be the next logical step?
Well, technically, it might not be a new contract, but an amendment to the existing contract, because I'm not so sure it will go beyond the current term that he's got. And I think the words this summer probably are more relevant than some of us would like. But, football's a game where you just can't look further down the line. If we were to win a cup and finish in the top four, and then you look at the options that other clubs would have, with Chelsea, with Lukaku, with Madrid and Mbappe, with, Messi's gone to Paris. There may not be a market for him. Other clubs might think, do you know what, we don't need him next year. So even if he wants to move next year, if there's not a buyer that then comes in for whatever the price, I mean, Manchester United are now highlighted as a potential buyer. But if you're Manchester United, you're thinking, we have such a promising young striker here in Mason Greenwood. Why would I want to go and spend 100 million when I've, think of what Mason Greenwood could be. I'm not going to say he's anything like Harry Kane, but there's a player with immense talent that will only improve playing games in the number 9 position. And Manchester United may well reach the stage where they think, why spend 100 million when we've got Mason Greenwood here? So if there's not the and Haaland, that's the elephant in the room for Haaland, because everyone wants to pay 70 million and get Haaland. So he may well find that there's not a club. Maybe Charlton Athletic will come and make a bid for him, in which case he won't be moving anywhere, will he? So he could be injured. He could score 40 goals this season. Let's not worry about next summer. Let's make sure that we get the maximum we possibly can from him whilst he's in a Spurs shirt. And then next summer takes care of itself. But I mean, just on the thing, we had that information. It was brilliantly sourced by Lee, wasn't it?
Fair play to Lee.
Lee was absolutely spot over it. And let's be honest, I think Lee was sceptical of the information he was getting at first from a source that we weren't sure about. When he put it in the group, we were all stunned, weren't we? None of us quite believed it. Yeah. And a lot of people were thinking at the time, even within the group, is this information right? But in fairness to Lee, absolutely everything that he was getting information on happened 2 or 3 days later, didn't it? Right down to when they sent that message and it said Kane will put out the statement at the weekend, and sure enough, Kane came out with a statement. So, this business about being late for training, he might have been delayed in his arrival at Tottenham Hotspur, but he had a trainer with him where he was. So he was training. So therefore, he's not late for training. He was just not at Tottenham Hotspur training. And it's those little vagaries like that the media want to pick up on. There's still no confirmation he got fined by the club for being late. Yeah. So I think I get that impression it's not White Knight Daniel Levy v Black Harry Kane. It may be a little bit grey Kane and a little bit grey Daniel Levy, but you get that feeling the club have been happy to see, partly since the Gary Neville thing, the club have been happy for Kane to be portrayed the way he has in the media. But if there was ever a problem with Kane, why was he captain tonight?
No, that's fair. I mean, that is fair, isn't it? If he had,
if he's unprofessional and he's kicking up and he's done this and he still wants out, why is he captain tonight, leading the team?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You would say he's there to lead by example. So again, that would be very strange if that's the case. And talking about that, kind of to you there, Matt. Nuno after the game said, "I see Harry every day since he's joined us. Every day, he doesn't have anything to prove, anything at all. He's committed. Everything that's happened before the situation is in the past." Like Jason says there, if there has been actions that have been of a wrong nature or incorrect, then you would imagine that would have filtered to the service now, and Spurs would have put out a statement, which they haven't done. They've kept everything pretty much in-house. How much credit, I've got to ask you, Matt, do you think Nuno deserves to handle this situation? Because I know a lot of people so far, still the jury's out. I know even though a couple of wins there, people are looking at the case that it hasn't been the most explosive brand of football. I think for me, when a new manager comes in, you've got to allow him to get his own players. You've got to give him time and then judge him. I think it's far too early at the moment to be looking at a playing style and trying to understand what Nuno's trying to do. But what I would say I've been impressed with is the way he has handled personalities, the likes of Ndombele, the likes of Harry Kane. Do you think the way in which Nuno's carried himself to the media with the Kane situation deserves credit? Because I think it does.
100%. 100%. I mean, I've obviously been impressed with him on the pitch so far and in the results that we've gotten. But off the pitch, I think in everything he's done and everything he said, I think he has been perfect. And he's the man I kind of felt most sorry for in all of this, because you can say what you want about Daniel Levy potentially being a big part of the reason why Kane wanted to leave. But Nuno has just come into what is, with all respect to Wolves and Valencia, the biggest job of his career so far, trying to rebuild a team that has the potential to be one of the best in England, but just hasn't really shown that in recent years. And he's coming into a disgruntled dressing room off the back of Mourinho, then whatever went on with Mason and the team choice in the cup final. And he's managed to steady the ship really, really well. And I couldn't care less what type of football we're playing right now, because Nuno is playing with a combination of Pochettino and Jose Mourinho squad with a little bit of a dash of some players that he wants to bring in. And there's really, not that there shouldn't be cohesion, but it wouldn't be a criticism you could put upon Nuno if there wasn't cohesion in that squad. And he's managed to get it absolutely perfectly. And like you say, playing style doesn't really matter all that much. What I care about is seeing Dele Alli run more than any other player in that game against Manchester City, which we've never seen him do before. No, and seeing players like Lucas Moura and Stephen Bergwijn a lot more positive, a lot more progressive on the ball. You're getting in some really important signings. And I think Nuno, it's hard to put any black marks really on what he's done so far. And I've especially been impressed with the handling of the Kane situation. And on the point of really, how does this indicate to us what has gone on behind the scenes? I was probably the most sceptical person there was when Kane released that statement a couple of weeks ago with everything. So I felt he probably should have released it a little bit sooner rather than leaving it drag on for the week and then things escalate every single day. But Nuno has been calm, composed, collected every single time he's been asked about Harry Kane. And he seems like a man who, perhaps I should have noticed at the time, but I can say in hindsight, was confident and knew for a fact that Harry Kane was going to be staying at the club and that he'd accept doing so. So maybe everything was blown out of the proportion by the media, which wouldn't be the first time that's happened, is it?
No.
Just on that Kane statement that came out on that Friday, I forget the date of it. Now, was it 6th of August, 7th of August? Yeah. You know, when he put that paragraph in there that said he hasn't refused to train and he's going back at the date planned. I cannot believe he would come out with a downright lie against the club on that statement.
And if there was a lie there, why would the club have not responded?
And the club not challenge it or respond it?
Yeah.
So, like I said, if he's on holiday with a Tottenham Hotspur trainer, then he is training for Tottenham Hotspur. It may not be at Spurs Lodge, but he is training under the supervision of Tottenham Hotspur. Simple as that.
Yeah. What I do want to go back to for a second in terms of Nuno's the game itself, Jake. You know, for that second goal, I know we shouldn't liken styles of play to other managers, but for me there was an element of just that Poch press being there for that second goal, because it was almost like we really did push Paços into their own half and they couldn't get out. And that's what led to the second goal. The Kane shot, the block, the Celso following up again, the block, the ball falling for Kane. Just for that split second, I know we haven't seen it consistently yet, but do you feel there is slowly now there's going to be an element of the game where we're going to hopefully start to see this pressing nature that Spurs in the past did adopt so well, and there might be an argument that we haven't got actually the players yet to impose that for a full 90 minutes. I could tell Jason, if Ndombele's on the pitch, that probably won't ever happen. But just from a general perspective, if he's got the right players to provide the service for this kind of style, it can work, can't it?
Yeah, I think the good thing about Nuno is he's very adaptable and he's not stubborn, which is obviously what happened with the last manager. Not Ryan Mason, the one before that, whose name we won't mention.
We're going so far back here. We've had so many. We've got to try.
The other one.
The other one. The one before the other one.
The other one we won't mention. But he was so stubborn, and I think it probably took some players, probably even further back. Some players, obviously, I think managed to have a great time under him, like surprisingly Tanganga. And if you go back and you watch that All or Nothing, it was incredible. That one episode was basically dedicated to Tanganga and how he sort of got his chance and he came through it. But a lot of them, I think, now I've spent a lot of time, especially last season, berating Winks, and I could have done that. I could have done that for a full episode, happily, without drawing a breath. But I do actually realise that that he was incredible in some of those big games for us under Poch against Barcelona, against Madrid. He was phenomenal. And you do think, well, there was that ridiculous mistake against West Ham when he just didn't clear the ball, and then we all know what happened next. But I think, well, maybe he was just really had the shackles on under Mourinho. Wasn't allowed to do what he does, and he can be on his day. I feel like I'm getting evils from Jason here, but he can.
That's the way he looks in general, Jake. Don't worry.
Anthony Costa has just slammed his coffee cup down. I know that.
Well, I wonder what's going on in the WhatsApp group. I dread to think.
Honestly, I tell you, Jesus.
But I do think you're right. If we have those players, especially if we can get rid of someone like Sissoko and bring in a player who's got actual ability and skill, then we can be that team. Especially, I know people have been saying this before in the comments. Why would you ever go 1-0 up and then sit back and defend when you've got Kane, Son? And then you've got players like Bergwijn and Lucas who could just run it in there. Now we've got Gil, and we've got these players that can just push the ball forward and keep it up there. It's amazing. And then you've got people like Skip, you've got Højbjerg, you've got these players that can hold that line. Nuno's so adaptable. I think all it really needs is probably one or two more players in there, and we can do that again, and we can just camp out in the other team's box. And just go for it, and know we will score. How can we not with all that talent we've got?
Yeah,
I think the thing with Winks, there was a moment about midway through the second half where he actually took a man on, and I think he went past him. But whether he went past him or not isn't the problem for me. It's that he had the courage to take the ball and take a man on. And so often we see with Winks, when teams have got men behind the ball, almost with the Mourinho style, you need to draw somebody out to start creating spaces. And he tends to get the ball, and there's 10 yards between him and the first defender, and he immediately passes it sideways or backwards. And you think, this is the problem. We are just going from sides, going nowhere. You either make the penetrating pass, or you take that ball forward the 10 yards and you suck someone out and ping a pass round him, or have the confidence and courage to take the ball and take somebody on. And that, I think, is the problem with Winksy. At the start of his career, he did that. He got that bad ankle injury at Burnley, which I think has seriously impacted on him anyway. But it's that lack of courage on the ball. It's as if he thinks, I can't go there because I'll lose it and the crowd will get on my back. And if he can solve that, there might still be somebody in him. But he is the only one that can solve it. And at this stage, Oliver Skipp, we've seen, has already got the courage to do that. And he's fallen behind Oliver Skipp, hasn't he? So he's got to add that to his game. He really has.
Jace, question there on the screen for you, because I know this is always your bugbear. Can anyone answer why we didn't wear the white shorts this evening? That's really annoying you, that.
You know, I asked the same question last week. If it's a European game, why were you in blue shorts?
Is that because we're not allowed because of the nature of the tier of this competition in Europe?
You mean it's a relegation from Europe playoff game? I don't know, mate. You know,
maybe they'll be eligible for the next round. Maybe they'll be eligible when we go into the group.
We must have white shorts in Europe, otherwise it doesn't feel like a European game.
Guys, for our listeners on audio, we're going to go for a very, very quick break. And when we return, we'll be discussing some of the players in that game in a bit more focus. Talk about Giovanni Lo Celso making it 3-0 to Tottenham. And of course, Watford to come at the weekend. For those on YouTube, we're going to be carrying on right now. We're going to come back round to you, Matt, and discuss Spurs' third goal of the game, which was a free kick from Giovanni Lo Celso, and it was headed into his own net by Antunes. I mean, to be fair, Lo Celso was heavily involved in Spurs' second goal, win the ball back, had that shot deflected for Kane to fire home. And I've got to say, although it looks like, it's early days for Lo Celso back in the Spurs team, is the key now just keeping him fit? Because that's been one of the most difficult things in relation to Lo Celso, that there's arguably a player that we see in glimpses, but we just haven't been able to see him consistently. And that's been the biggest frustration so far of his time at Tottenham.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the point of that goal, I think Lo Celso's reaction of, I don't really care, I think summed up exactly what the goal was like. It was a shocking piece of defending. But like I was saying a while ago, I do think Lo Celso has a lot of quality and a lot more than he's shown in this team. And as much as his fitness has been a major issue, I do think he, along with what the point Jason was making about Harry Winks, that perhaps he was just a victim of the style of football that was really played last year. Because I've always said it about Harry Winks, that he is an incredible player to have in your team when you are dominating games and you're right up on top of the opposition. And for me, why he was so good for so long under Pochettino, because he can be that metronome where those sideways passes aren't allowing a bus to stay parked, but instead it's keeping an attack going and keeping things flowing. And it's a very simple thing to do, but it's a very important job when you're playing that type of football. And I feel like Lo Celso was asked a lot last year to kind of really buy into that. I think what we saw from a lot of our Argentinian players, that kind of bite and that defensive sort of, I suppose, the love of defending that he needed to do. And he wasn't allowed to show what he could do on the front foot. And he showed today exactly what he can do in that kind of tenacity to getting that goal for Kane. And I was extremely impressed when Harry Kane went off that, or attacking bite didn't really go anywhere. That spark was still there. And Celso was a big part of that. Create that opportunity for Son as well that he put wide just after Kane went off. So I think once Lo Celso does get that bit of freedom, we will start to see a lot more from him and a lot more quality. But it is just that fitness. And you can never bank on it. He could go and have the best 6 months of his career and then come out with an injury that ends the season, which is really upsetting to see. But I think it would be silly to give up on him now. Like I would have said the same thing about Ndombele if he wasn't trying to push him away from the club. But because, again, like I said, but there's just so many different things kind of muddled into one of his club in terms of the different managers he's played under, the different style of players he's playing with, the different style of play he's been in. He has a lot of quality. And if we continue playing the way we did tonight under Nuno, the way we did against Manchester City, I think Lo Celso is a player that could really strive under that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it because I'm a big fan of his. Yeah.
I want to discuss Christian Romero, and I want to come round to you next, Jake, because, he picked Kane at a very, very early ball in seconds that led to a chance, picked up a bizarre yellow card for winning the ball cleanly. and had some good moments in the opening 45 minutes. I mean, he liked a strong run up the pitch. He's very comfortable on the ball. We've got a question on the screen here from Wandil Mayikiso, who says, I'm a bit worried about Romero picking up yellow cards as he loves a tackle. With the pace of the Premier League, don't you think that might be a problem? What's your thoughts on that, Jake?
Well, I do. I'll go for him. First of all, that ball to Kane early on was like the like Toby-esque central defender who can ping the ball forward up the pitch. Amazing. And if he can carry on doing that, and also notice how much he likes to drive forward himself, which does make me think we need a bit more of a disciplined centre-back to be with him. And I think disciplined is probably the last word you'd use to describe Dyer or Sanchez. So that's concerning. But with the... I think it might be perfect timing that the way that they've decided this year to sort of the referees to be a bit more lenient. I feel like somehow that's perfect timing for Romero because he's going to probably need it. Otherwise, yeah, he could be in trouble. But I think he's from what I've seen of him, and I'll admit that was a lot of just him playing for Argentina and then YouTube videos.
Yeah,
he can make incredible tackles, and so it might be that the new rule and VAR save us from playing a lot of games with 10 men because he can be erratic, but he does often. He's so good that he does actually get the ball. So I don't know what happened today. Hopefully, he doesn't get any yellows like today, which was I can't see what happened there apart from a mistake. But he's erratic. But I think you need that a bit in a sense back. It's a bit like a goalkeeper, like Lloris. You just need that they're a bit crazy.
Yeah,
The best ones are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very early days. It's hard because you can definitely see glimpses there of what obviously is a bit of an interest to Tottenham, and hopefully, like I say, in time, he is going to become that defender that we all want him to be. We've looked for what we would describe a transformative defender. You know, he's won the Serie A, Defender of the Year. Let's remember, I mean, he comes at quite a premium for what we've paid. I mean, Jace, again, another question there on the screen from Ant who says Romero's a bit of a madman. Was the furthest player up at the pitch a few times. He was great, albeit a bit rash. I mean, you alluded to this, Jace, a week ago, and I said to you, give it time. It's far too early. On the basis of yet another 90 minutes, again, I think it's hard to judge it on this particular opposition. Has your opinion changed at all on Romero?
Oh, no, I mean, it's way too early. I mean, I didn't see enough of him in Serie A. And you're talking about a league with seriously quality defending.
Yeah.
And he's won the Defender of the Year. So in that respect, you think, well, the boy must know how to defend, and he must have impressed in a league where you've got Chiellini and Bonucci and people like that. So, that's on the plus side. It's not just the rashness. His confidence on the ball is fantastic. But I think I put in the group today, his positional sense reminded me of watching David Luiz, and that he can go wandering all over the place. And you're right, if you haven't got somebody behind to do that, in the Premier League, that's a big danger. And so, if he was playing with Davinson Sanchez and did that, and we know how Sanchez is like that. So I think if Romero plays, it will have to be with Eric Dyer, because at least Eric Dyer might shout and ball him out and say, oi, get back here, don't go and do that. So I think Dyer Romero would have to be the partnership, because I would have, and even then, that's not saying Dyer's a great defender, but if it's him and Sanchez, I'd dread to think what could happen. And I think, that the rash side, the physicality side, Premier League strikers will relish that perhaps more than a lot of overseas players do, where the slightest contact is a foul. So, I mean, you saw that at the weekend, didn't you? Look at Lukaku. He absolutely loved being pinned by who was it? Who's the Arsenal bloke? The idiot that he was marking. And you saw how Lukaku played on that. And then after Lukaku comes Danny Ings, who will love that. Troy Deeney at the weekend will love a physical battle. And then you'll go to Chelsea, and then you go to Arsenal and that. So it will be a difficult introduction for him. I'm certainly not writing him off or saying he can't play in the Premier League, but I think we are going to have to see quite a bit of adaptation. And I'd be very surprised if he wins Defender of the Year in the Premier League in his first year. I think it could be, you might see a lot of mistakes from him, or a lot of times when he's caught out of position, but you perhaps will have to go through that for him to learn what he can and can't do in the Premier League. But I certainly don't think he's. I mean, Toby came in as almost a Rolls Royce defender straight away.
But obviously, he had
he
that
had the benefit of
Southampton.
Southampton.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and Van Dijk had done the same. So, and I'm certainly not saying we loan him out to Southampton for the year, but I just think it will take him a little bit of time. And there is that moment of David Luiz in him where he'll go downfield. I mean, there was once in the first half where he got caught right out wide defending, and you could see the others defending. God, look at the hole you've left. And if that breaks down in the Premier League, you're punished. You're punished. So I think we need to learn to play with him, and he really needs to learn the Premier League. And Højbjerg will be huge for him, because when he starts wandering, Højbjerg and possibly even Skip have got to fill that gap. Otherwise, that hole is the only person you can get away with that against is Adama Traore, and you can let him go through one-on-one, and you know nothing will happen.
And there's Jason thoughts on Adama Traore. You can't wait, to join the fan club and have him on the back of his shirt. I want to stick with Romero for a second. We had a couple of comments in, coming back around to you, Matt. Comments here from, we've got one on the screen there from Tom Brooks. It says, Romero's played in Champions League more recently than any Spurs player. He'll be fine. Chill. I mean, I say it's early days, and like we've all said, he's one Serie A player of the year. I mean, he's going to be a wonderful player. Listen, whatever happens, we've spent a lot of money on this guy. We will make it a success. He'll be a wonderful player, and it's so hard. We're not going to judge the guy over 180 minutes against a team. Of course not. Let's be honest about it. It's at the moment it's an irrelevance, and I'm sure he'll be great in his game time. Of course, he needs to get to know his teammates. Raj and Aidan both similar along the line, saying about maybe he'll be suited to a back three. Is that what you feel could be the case for him, Matt? That he would succeed in that kind of role?
Yeah, I mean, he can play in a back four. Of course, it was a back three last season with Atalanta when they went on to finish third in the Serie A, but he then went to the Copa America with Argentina, played in the back four, and they won it. So, I mean, he has experience in both of them, and he's done well in both of them as well. But I think the system he plays in depends on the players beside him. And I'd say the same about whether or not we're worried about his aggressiveness and how high up the pitch he goes. It depends on who he's playing with. And this is why there's so many people, when we were getting Christian Romero, were saying to me, we need Maxence Lacroix to be playing alongside him. The worst possible player we could have had, because they're both that type of player, where they'll be sprinting up the pitch and I don't even know how to describe it, like headless chickens just run around the place. But what matters with Romero is he has that ability to get back in, and he has that pace, and he has that know-how, which is the most important thing, because we can see him, running around the place and immediately panic. I mean, last week we were 1-0 down. He's playing almost on the right wing for 5 minutes at one stage, and that is concerning when you don't really know what he's about. But he has that ability. He's done it for this few years. He did it and ended up getting a move to Juventus, so he must be doing something right. But it just depends on who's alongside him, and I feel the failures in trying to move Davinson Sanchez on and getting a centre back in who could be that man could be a bit detrimental to us, and then we're maybe looking at a situation where we have to get Romero to be a bit more pragmatic in the way he defends and the way he plays, and then all of a sudden we spent £50 million or €50 million on a player who's just won Serie A Defender of the Year, and we're asking him to play a completely different style, and that's probably just as bad as not getting him in the first place, which there is concerns and there are worries. And with 5 days left in the transfer window, you do have to be kind of asking questions about that. But I feel like he's just that player who can adapt to a back three or a back four, but so many questions are left unanswered. And look, we're seeing today now the Zuma's going to West Ham, then maybe Kunde to Chelsea, then maybe Sanchez to Sevilla, but then we have to go out and get a centre back. And I'm just concerned that 5 days isn't enough for 4 moves in that domino effect to actually go ahead and go through. And really, we're not really looking at too many players that Tottenham are linked with. And look, we could have a situation where we go out and get another Bryan Gil, and that it's done in the space of 3 or 4 days. But we wanted Milenkovic, he signed a new contract. We wanted Zuma, he's gone. We wanted Kunde, he's gone. And a lot of questions are left unanswered. But if we get the right man for Romero, there's no reason why he can't win Premier League Defender of the Year this year. Yeah,
I mean, by all accounts, unless there's a massive transfer pendulum swing from what we understand, Spurs aren't looking at actively bringing in another centre-back. I mean, we know there's been links to Tomiyasu. Maybe that's one they look at in the final days of the transfer window. That remains to be seen. Player I want to ask you about, coming over to you, Jake, is Ryan Sessegnon. Almost becoming almost a forgotten man at Spurs in a way, to be honest with you, because he was brought in for a very, very high fee. Of course, was on loan last season at Hoffenheim. I thought it was a busy presence in that first half and a more attacking role. He linked up well with Hill at times. The pair often overlapping each other. Less quality in the second half before he was replaced. Nuno, after the game, said he's struggling. A lot of time out of competition. He has talent. He's a player that can give us good things. 1v1, crossing, energy. But he did not do all that he has today. I truly believe that he has much more than he can give. Do you think, Jake, that he's going to get a regular run in Nuno's team this season, or do you think he will be a player that will be used sparingly for the likes of the cup competitions like the Europa Conference League?
I mean, I think he will be used a lot for that. And I think that's how Nuno will get the best out of him eventually. I thought it was nice how he used him more attacking. I think the worst thing for Sessegnon was the timing where he came in as Mourinho came in, and Mourinho had no time for that because obviously he wanted to win something now. So he didn't have really much chance. He went out, he was good on loan, and I thought he was great before. He was great at Fulham, he's been great for England. I think it won't be long until it's him and Reguilon fighting for that position in the Premier League. I think he's got it. He just needs that belief. And Nuno is that sort of perfect manager of him, I think. He needs a bit of the arm around the shoulder. And I think he needs that belief. And Nuno's the sort of person who is going to make those comments he's made there. I think that's probably, I think we'll see the sort of the worst thing Nuno will ever say about a player. To admit it wasn't the best, but I know they will get better. And I think that's how he manages his players. And that's exactly what Sessegnon needs. I think Sessegnon's great. I've always been surprised and thought before now we would have played him in front of a left back and played him a bit more forward, knowing they can overlap because he gets forward. I think we all saw that incredible goal he scored for us before. He's happy to get up there and score. I think it was against Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
He scored a phenomenal goal. He's great. And I think for England, he had incredible stats.
Yeah.
I think by the end of the season, he'll be fighting for Reguilon, but certainly in this competition, I think we'll see a lot of him. I certainly hope so.
Yeah. I mean,
I
James,
think
what do you think, Jason?
the Reguilon thing, I said that, didn't I? I think he needs to fight it with Reguilon because if you look at a Premier League game, if you pick in our strongest team, Kane is at the centre and Sonny's coming from the left.
Yeah.
So if Sessegnon's further forward, he's got to be producing more than Sonny has. That's just not going to happen. So Reguilon is the spot that he's. And again, we talk about Reguilon and Sessegnon, both perhaps sooner be a wing back because they probably haven't got the defensive quality to be a left back, and that's the problem. But I think it needs the belief, he needs the maturity, he needs to come out of his shell. I think Mourinho alluded to that even around that Bayern game, that he needs to show more himself and impose his personality. And perhaps he's still looking there thinking, God, that's Son, that's Kane. And he shouldn't be. You know, he was the star at Fulham. And I mean, at the times I watched Fulham that season, and he was head and shoulders on the pitch. And you're talking about a boy that was, 17, 18 at the time. Yeah. And the Championship is a good league. He wasn't doing it in League Two. He was doing that in the Championship. And he carried Fulham to, I think they missed out that season and came up the next. But he was top player in the division by a long way that season. So the talent's in him, but he's just got to show more. But, you know, tonight he's on the fringe of things and you're thinking, come on, boy, just get that last touch and go there. And it kind of breaks that. So it looks promising, but nothing actually comes of it. And but then you pay 40 million for that these days.
Yeah. Maybe he's getting some oil.
Oh my God, we're going to come on to him very, very shortly. I'm sure Jason can't wait to try and get his teeth into that. Before we do, Matt, let's get your thoughts very much on Sessegnon as well, because I'm just interested. You know, we've got Mario there on the screen. Says Sess was superb for Fulham. Let's hope we see some of that form he showed in a couple of years back. I think he was a Championship Player of the Year a few years ago, which is very true. He was. Again, I just wonder, you know, it's one of those players where for me, is he able to make that step up to a bigger club? And that's always the key, isn't it? You know, is a player able to take the form he's shown at a smaller club into a bigger club? We've seen that happen so many times before where players just struggle to adapt for whatever reason. And unfortunately, the Championship is their level. I mean, I look at someone like, I know maybe it was early at the time, but someone like Wilfred Zaha got that move to Manchester United, never really worked out, went back to Crystal Palace where inevitably that maybe was his level and he hasn't actually seen a move materialise since from Palace. Do you think Sessegnon will succeed in the Tottenham shirt?
It's getting more and more unlikely with every day that passes and every game that passes. And it's unfortunate because he, like you mentioned, he came in when Jose Mourinho came in and it just maybe wasn't the best time for him. But then when you're looking at, was it last season, you're hoping maybe he will kick on. All of a sudden we're getting Gareth Bale and Sergio Reguilon, who just so happened to play in the two positions that the Sessegnon can't play in. And straight away there, he was right down the pecking order in the two options that he had. And the move to Hoffenheim was good for him, going out playing in a system that it felt at the time would be the future system at Tottenham with that three at the back and the wing backs. And he did relatively well there. I think he had a great start to the season and kind of faded off towards the end. But I mean, the quality is there, but like you say, it's just that ability to adapt to a bigger team. And I've had a Fulham fan that I'm friends with has been in my DMs the last few weeks, giving out to me saying I think we're breaking the toy that we stole from him, and they want him back. And I mean, you can understand it. He was absolutely sensational for Fulham, but I feel like that season in the Premier League, he was far and away the best player in that team, despite the fact they spent £100 million in the window. But there was never really any consistency in where he played, and I felt as though he was just a player that they over relied on. That he played left back one week, then he played left wing, then he played right wing, then he go back out to the left wing, and he never really got the chance to settle in the Premier League in a certain position. And I know either side in the wing are relatively similar, but there are differences, and you do kind of need that consistency. And that's just gotten even worse at Spurs when the question of consistency isn't position, but actually getting on the pitch. And maybe a loan to a Premier League side is the best thing for him, but I can't really see that materialising. And like I said, with every game that passes, I'm getting more and more concerned.
I'd love to see him alone at Brighton or somewhere like that. Not a Newcastle or somewhere like that. Brighton, I think, somebody that wants to play with a ball, that wants to play
a progressive team.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton. Yeah. I'd love him to go and play for Brighton, and then he wouldn't be overshadowed by Kane. It's Neil Maupay there, so he'd have his chances to do his bits and pieces. Yeah. If he played well 1 week in 3, it would start to get his confidence up. He'd be noticed on your match of the days, and people start saying, "Cool, Sessegnon looked good the other night," because they're only watching a 10-minute clip of the game and things. And slowly but surely, that process would help him. But like I said, Brighton, please, somewhere like that.
Talk about Brighton, please. I think many would have been thinking that maybe going into this game, Harry Winks. He did pull off a superb starting tackle, to be fair, to stop a Paços break, motored away before playing the ball over the top to Hill to pick out Kane. He had less to do in the second half, to be fair. He did boss the possession, but he worked hard in that anchor man role behind the midfield three, and very little got past him. Much of his work will probably go unnoticed after a more eye-catching first half. I mean, Jace, taking away the... putting this performance into isolation of Harry Winks, who, to be fair, I think he has had a lot of criticism. I mean, I would say as a pod, we try and be fairly balanced in terms of the players that we give a view on. I think Winks has had his fair share, I would say. I think he's probably had his fair share from a lot of different Tottenham media channels out there. What did you make of Harry Winks' performance? Do you think he still needs that move before the end of this summer transfer window for him as well to have that restart for football?
Who may, like I said, he needs to have more courage with the ball. It's as simple as that. We saw him have it tonight a couple of times, but there was still a hell of a lot of times when he had 10 yards of space and gave it sideways or backwards. So, his first thing he's got to understand is he's behind Oliver Skipp. And Oliver Skipp is showing great courage with the ball. And he's now playing against a really good Manchester City, and he's played an away game at Wolves. And let's be honest, he's looked better than Harry Winks did at any stage last season in both of those games. Yeah. So, the number of touches and the forward passes and that he had. And he is one that we're not talking about Harry Winks making 50, 60-yard defence splitting passes. It's that little 5-yard pass that finds your number 10 in that little bit of pocket. And it's rather than just thinking I'm going backwards or sideways. And it's pinging that pass, isn't it? It's not, it's pinging it with a little bit of tempo to it that first time, it's not getting it looking, spending 4 or 5 seconds looking and they think, I'll go sideways. It's got to be pinged one touch, which is what we saw in that Real Madrid game. But a bit like Jack Wilshere lived off the Barcelona game, Harry Winks cannot live off that Real Madrid game anymore. So it's up to him, and he's the only one that can solve this problem now.
Yeah, I mean, coming over to you, Jake, you've got a question on the screen there, which we're going to answer in a second. But I mean, Winks, when you look at the fact that, as Jason said there, he's going to be battling the likes of Skipp. I mean, Højbjerg, I think he's slightly different in terms of his role. Do you think for Winks, it's going to be very hard for him to get a look in this season?
I think the issue with Winks, just as you were saying there, is he's not ever going to make that risk or take that risk or do that exciting ball, because I think he knows if that ball goes amiss or if he mucks up, if it leads to an attack, he can so easily be dropped now for a far superior player. And so I think he probably I don't know what happened. He unfollowed Tottenham, and I don't know if it on Instagram and Twitter. We all know that. I don't know why he did that, because he's Tottenham through and through, and he loves us.
But you better look on the main Twitter account. Jesus.
Yeah.
Spurs official. The last thing he's worried about is Spurs official. Don't let him look at the main Twitter account.
But again, Jake, did he unfollow or did his management team unfollow? That's the only thing these days. How often it's them and how often it's somebody else, I don't know.
I think from what we can tell, I think Reguilon's the only one who's still got his own password, and he loves it.
Remember Joe Hart last year celebrating our 3-0 win.
Yeah.
There you go. Look, you know.
Yeah, I think, and we're slightly more forgiving than Celtic fans, I'd imagine, for stuff like that. But I think now he obviously wants to stay. He probably realises he might as well try and set Tottenham for another season and try his luck, because ultimately we are now, I think anyone would admit and agree with this, we're the biggest club he'll ever be at now. Anywhere else he goes would be
it's
not even a sideways step. It'll be Southampton. It'll be Everton at best. It will be Brighton and lovely.
I've only used lovely. My God, I tell you, I totally agree on that point. Matt, question on the screen there. It's more of a statement from Zoe there on the screen. I agree. She says Harry Winks' problem is that he's never really established what sort of midfielder he is. I do think since Poch's departure, he has lost his complete identity. He doesn't know what he is. I don't think he even knows now really what he's going to become. I think there's a real stage where he's now reached that crossroads. And where does he go from here? For me, a performance like tonight doesn't really change my mindset on Harry. That he does need to go somewhere that he's going to play that regular first-team football. He's going to become accustomed to one position and look to now that, because he's clearly a player that Gareth Southgate has liked in the past. He's selected him in numerous England squads. I think for his own career, he needs to go to a club where the fans are going to be behind him. And you just feel at Tottenham, you feel that door is coming now. It's ajar. I'd say it's close to being closed, if I'm being honest with you. I don't know if you agree on that.
Yeah, I feel like if Harry Winks wasn't a boyhood Spurs fan, he'd be gone by now. And I think he's trying to cling on to some sort of childhood dream that he had. And look, as Spurs fans, I'm sure we can all kind of relate to it in some way, but he needs to put his career first. It's not going to happen to him at Tottenham, as sad as it is to say. And for a while, it looked as though he could have been, or maybe, again, talking to Spurs fans getting carried away, it looks as though he could have been, or Steven Gerrard or Frank Lampard, maybe not to that same level of quality, but in terms of that mainstay in our midfield, that number 8 that we had for so long. And it's just not gone well for him. And again, a victim of the system, of all the changes at the club, but that's not enough of an excuse to say, okay, well, you can continue putting in bang average performances most of the time on a Thursday night for your 50, 60,000 pounds a week, whatever it is. It's just not enough. And he has that passion, he has the DNA, as we're told about all the time, but at the end of the day, the quality isn't there. And this crossroads, like you say, is quickly coming towards him, and that door, I do agree with you, is closing very fast. If it doesn't happen for him this season, there's no reason whatsoever why he should stay at the club beyond next season. But I think it's written in stone for him now that he will be, if he does make it in the Premier League, it won't be at Spurs.
I just want to come back to Mark's question. To be fair, Mark, we did say we'd answer that. Jace, very quickly on that for you. Højbjerg and Skip. I think Mark's question, can they play together? Will that be a long-term partnership? What do you think on that?
I think there'll be games where they do, but if I'm honest, I think, at the moment, Oliver Skip's inexperience in the Premier League. We didn't know how he would come back from Norwich. So I think he needs just to get that little bit of confidence and belief, and everyone know what he's good at. And then maybe in 10, 15 games time, when you're at home to Crystal Palace or something, maybe Nuno and the team have the confidence to say, okay, we can rest Højbjerg tonight and we can play Oliver Skip. I think depending what system you're going to play, but I don't think when we play Crystal Palace at home, I want to see the two of them together. I want us to have a little, that more attacking vibe to us. But, if you're playing Liverpool away, you might want to go with Oliver Skip or Højbjerg. So I think it will depend on the opponent, and it just needs time for Oliver Skip to get the confidence from the players, and for him to get his confidence that, yes, do you know what? I can put you in the team and I can rely on you to do a job. And then you might see Højbjerg for some of those home games think, okay, this is the week. And let's be honest, we said it last season, Højbjerg will need a rest at times. He did play too many games last year. So if Skip can do that job on his own, I think we first saw him, was his debut against Burnley at Wembley.
Yes.
Burnley at Wembley, I think that day. And see, that's where he had that role on his own. And Burnley's a prime example. Burnley at home, you should just be able to go with one of those two.
Yeah. Sticking with you, Jace, I want to get your thoughts on Bryan Gil. He recorded his first assist for Spurs with a ball across to Kane to open the scoring. He was, for me, a real live wire, and the fans have already taken to him, to be fair. He fired a shot wide after the hour mark after a good run. Still raw in some of the things he does, but got plenty of potential. Do you see him, Jace, potentially being a regular on the starting sheet for Tottenham, or is it a case that, again, with this kind of player, the nature of where he's come from, we're going to need to kind of gradually bring him into the team? It might not be, straight away Premier League start. It will be a case that we're going to slowly maybe introduce him to games.
Exactly. I think it'll be introduced. He'll play more of these. He may well play the Carabao Cup game, and then you bring him off the bench if you're struggling to break down a side. But I mean, at the moment, if you start, it's not so much a question of does he start, it's who does he replace. And, at the moment, the way we're playing, does Bergwijn actually deserve to be left out of the next starting game? Has Gil done more than Steven Bergwijn so far over this season? He probably hasn't. So, he'll need one or two of the others to perform poorly for him to get the chance. But you'd feel confident that if in 3 or 4 games' time Bergwijn's done nothing or Lucas Moura's doing nothing, you'd say, okay, Hill comes in. But, you can't pick 15 in a team. So if the others are performing, which, let's be honest, at the moment they are, then they can't be left out just to play somebody else.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. Matt, let's come around to you. Bryan Gil, how impressed was you with him? I know a lot of Spurs fans getting very, very excited, to be fair. It is very, very early days, of course, but there's a bit of talent in there, isn't there? He's going to be a player that's going to get you off your seat at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I've just got that feeling.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see him really start to get into stride. And I feel like Jose Mourinho has changed me as a football fan, because I loved when Hill got that yellow card for screaming at the ref. I don't know why, but I just really enjoyed that moment. But look, on the ball, he is taking the ball past players if they're not there. And like I mentioned, that pace to get in behind the lines. The end product isn't completely there. He had a few efforts that he scuffed wide, and like I mentioned earlier, the deflected shots that, of course, one went off the post. He was unlucky not to get on the score sheet, but I feel like a goal was all that was missing from his game today, because that assist for Harry Kane, we can look at it as a 10-yard pass, but there's 3 defenders in between him and Kane. He managed to drill that pass right into his feet, and of course it takes the quality of a man like Kane to be able to control that and put it in the back of the net in a split second. But Hill did absolutely incredibly to get that, and he's going to be a very, very important player for us this season. And last week or the week before, I would have said a very important squad player, but I think he may be a bit more important to us with what we've seen in the last week or so. But it's just about, I say, in a similar vein to Ryan Sessegnon, about actually being able to do that on the Premier League stage, which is very different, because, I mean, he's used to playing European football. He's done that with, I think he's done it with Sevilla, wouldn't have done it with Eibar, but the physicality of the Premier League, I think, is something that he may struggle with, but it's about how he adapts to that. And look, I don't think you can really guess. I don't think you can predict. It's just down to what happens. But we're optimistic. I'd say that much.
Yeah, totally agree. Another statement on the screen there. I mean, Jake, no pressure on the kid. I mean, there's something about this Hill, something special, great touch. Dare I say, Ginola-esque drop of the shoulder. I mean, I've seen actually comparisons to Modric. I love the fact Spurs fans, we don't get carried away about a first game, do we? Modric, Ginola. I mean, who else can you chuck in? Gascoigne. I mean, no pressure on the kid.
Before we even got him.
Just coming in, my God, no pressure on him at all. But what do you think?
I think, I mean, I'd say, probably someone who will become the next Messi. But let's just wait and see. Give him a couple of games.
Feet went on the ground there. Feet firmly on the ground there. Just the next Messi.
I watched the Olympics final that he played in against Brazil. He was absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if any of you saw it. That shot he did that smashed off the crossbar. I couldn't believe it. And he was everywhere. I just thought he came on for the second half, so I thought I'd put it on. I remember at one point he had the ball down the left and then he made a pass. Somebody else lost the ball, ended up back at their goalkeeper. The goalkeeper booted it back up the pitch to the right, and it was Gil there to pick it up and carry on running. And I thought he's just someone who will go everywhere. I think he'll cover anything. He'll just run around. He'll be busy. He'll keep the other team busy, and he will provide stuff. And I know there was the issue with the first leg of this round where he was drifting over from the left, and everyone was saying how Winks had a go at him. And I was thinking, Winks, what he's doing is taking a risk. Maybe you could try something like that every now and again.
Exactly.
He's playing football. Exactly. He's doing something unpredictable, and you as a player, you're going to have to adapt and cover his space then, because he's going to do something. Because this is a player that can. I mean, I know we've put nothing but pressure on this guy, but he's. I think he's such a talent, and I think, I mean, ultimately, if you look at it, you could maybe be slightly. If it wasn't so good, you could be slightly underwhelmed by the actual transfer window we've had so far. Bringing in like a backup goalkeeper, a player for the future, and then just basically the one centre back. But I think there will be more to come in. But I think he'll be, I think he'll be a proper talent. Can't wait to watch him. And also today, I did think it was good the fact that it was. I made a note of it. What was it? The substitution was that him and Kane came off for Son and Bergwijn. I mean, when was the last time we could take two players off, bring two players on, and all four of them could be on the pitch at the same time? It was incredible options to have. We're so dynamic now. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I say A Brown there says the Gil Lamella swap seems to be working out for both Spurs Seville. You'd have to see it. I mean, very, very early days. Jace, just a question in terms of formation there. We've got Stelios saying Nuno plays a 4-3-3 with two holding mids, which doesn't work. We give up possession way too easily. Doesn't tonight prove three at the back and only one holding midfielder is far better? What's your thoughts on that question?
Like I say, there's certain games, no team should have one tactic, one complete, just rigid formation that they play. Football now is, even within a game, you'll change your shape. You can start with a 4-3-3, and if the opposition are going with 4-3-3 and they're cancelling you out, you have to come up with something different. So, I think most players now have to be tactically astute to be able to play in more than one way, and every team has to. So, horses for courses, isn't it? You can't go play Liverpool away with the same formation that you'll play Burnley at home. Burnley at home will have specific things where you've got to look after Chris Wood, and yet, you'll go and play Brighton and it's Neil Maupay. So you can't get caught up in one particular system all the time. The principles of your play, where you might say, look, we want a high press, we want to dominate the ball, that can be it, but you can try and play that way with 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 4-4-2, whichever way you want to do it. So let's not pigeonhole one particular formation. But I mean, I've said, I think at the moment, I think we kind of have a squad defensively that suits playing with three at the back and two wing backs, but we have a squad of attacking players that you want to see on the pitch. So it's trying to get that balance right.
Yeah, which is fair. Just on Bryan Gil, after the game, Nuno said, I think Bryan had a good game, full of energy. This is what we wanted. He brings talent in every time he goes to the final third of the pitch. He's a player who needs to improve in his decision-making, but we are here to support him. Talk about decision-making, that brings on nicely to Steven Bergwijn. He ended a lovely run inside from the left with a deflected shot that the keeper had fingertips to onto the post. More good work, but as we said with Bergwijn, it is the final touch just required. That brings us nicely along, I think, to someone like Adama Traore, who I'm sure, just very quickly, I mean, this transfer at the moment is swinging kind of left to right. It's uncertain, it's unsure. I'm going to come to Jason at the end, because I think we know Jason's thoughts on Adama Traore. If you don't, you'll hear him in a couple of seconds. Matt, for you, Adama Traore, do you think he's a player that would come in? The key here is, would he improve the squad? Would he improve the first team?
He improves us in every aspect apart from putting the ball in the back of the net. And what's the point in that, if you ask me? 37 appearances last season with 2 goals and 2 assists. Yes, he runs past players for fun, like he did against us on Sunday, but I mean, I don't see the point. If we were getting him for 15, 20 million, I mean, he's an investment. He's worth it. He's the type of player who, if we are going to play a defensive game away to Man City or away to Liverpool or something like that, he's the perfect player to have on the pitch. But if we want to play this attacking style of football, let's not do that to ourselves, to be honest, because we have enough players in our team that are frustrating in front of goal, like Steven Bergwijn, like Lucas and Dele Alli at times. Adama Traore, £40 million. I can't think of a worse transfer for us to do right now. We need end product, and he's unfortunately not that man. It's been that way throughout his entire career.
Jake, on the screen there, Stefan Boyer says, we don't need Adama. Put the 40 million towards a player that will improve us like Oar. It's interesting because the only thing that concerns me about this element of the transfer is that when I see Adama's being likened to a support striker, and you look at his goal scoring record, and looking at Jason, because I can see Jason's face is just vacant, thinking, what am I talking about here? Is a goal scoring record for a player that can't finish. But there'll be an argument out there, Jake, that will say, well, he terrifies defenders. Just pass it to Kane and Son to finish. What do you think of that argument?
There is that, because we talk about his lack of assists, and obviously we all know that Wolves had a terrible season last time anyway. I mean, I can't believe I'm now defending the idea of us getting him. Just to play devil's advocate, maybe his assists.
Someone's got to be that guy, Jake.
Okay, so this is my niche on the podcast. This is what I can do. Defend Traore for us. If his assists and goals might be low, but what about his assist to the assist? If he can run it up there like that.
About the pre-assist here, right? The pre-assist.
The pre-assist. We're going for the pre-assist.
Yeah.
We're getting worse than XG now. We're looking at the other stuff. But basically, if he can do, I mean, Lucas Moura, I like Lucas, but I think we need options on the right, a lot more options on the right. I don't think Traore is it, especially for 40 million when you can literally get Ronaldo now for 25, apparently.
I'm sure Ronaldo's queuing up for Thursday night Europa Conference League. I've just got a call. One sec, hold on.
He's never won it.
He's never, as much as Ronaldo wants a new
It's
challenge,
missing.
I'm not sure that kind of change is what he would be after. I don't know. Listen, strange things happen in football.
It's an option. I think it would be a sort of an interesting player to have, but I don't think it's an interesting player that we can afford to have at the moment. If he was backing up the likes of I think he's just basically too similar to Lucas Moura, where he can run it, a bit of a headless chicken sometimes. He can run it up there and it leads to not much. If he was on the left and he was an option for Son or Bergwijn or something, then maybe. But I mean, ultimately, just no. Especially for that money, I don't understand why it won't go somewhere else now. Especially considering now Sissoko is about to do the best thing he's ever done for us and leave.
Yeah,
Freeing up a position for another player to come in. I mean, we can go anywhere. And I don't know how to pronounce the name. Hopefully we'll learn. Awar.
It could be away by the time the deadline day comes, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, but hopefully
if it does come off. Jace, on the screen there, Kent Caper says, if Nuno really wants Traore, we need to try and get him. Support the manager. And I think, do you know what, Jace? That's always one thing you always said to me. Back the manager, support the manager. So, I mean, taking the element of maybe the player not being to your, liking in terms of ability and style-wise, if Nuno really wants him, do you think the club need to go and get him?
Well, I think if the manager is adamant that he really wanted him, then yes, you have to do. But like I said, I mean, I'll try not to let my prejudice come at him. But we have. This is a limited. We do not have limitless funds. We've brought in Hill. We have Moura. We have Bergwijn. We have Son. So, what is Adama Traore going to bring quality-wise considerably more than what we've got for 40 million when we actually only have Tanganga as a right-back? And if Japhet Tanganga's injured tomorrow, we are in seriously trouble at right-back for the season. So, you think there is, for me, there are more areas of the team to improve. Do you know what? I'd say go and get Adama Traore if you really want him, but then please sell Steven Bergwijn or sell Lucas Moura because or don't even then bring in Bryan Gil or something. Try and do it in a constructive way. Where is our team weak?
Yeah.
You look at central midfield. We got doubts about Winks, doubts about Sissoko, doubts about Ndombele. I think one of the lads earlier alluded, we still don't really know if Lo Celso is going to cut it in the Premier League. Yeah. So you look at central midfield and think, we can't pin our hat on any of those four players, yet we want to go and sign a fifth player that can play wide.
Yeah.
And, what qualities does the player bring to the team? Yes, you're right, if Nuno wants him, but I'm looking, yes, he runs incredibly fast, but with nothing. So you could sign Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
But I'm serious. What is Usain Bolt going to lose?
Worrying that Usain Bolt might have a better goal scoring record. That's what I would be worried about.
And of course, when Traore is playing, you are losing what more. I mean, there's no way Traore will ever have a night like Ajax. He will never have the night at Old Trafford. He will never have, Lucas Moura, we know has it. I mean, Lucas Moura's got as many goals for Wolves, against Wolves for us, as Traore has against us for them.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying Lucas Moura is a fantastic player, but I'm just saying priority-wise for me, I think, hold on, there's a better way for us with limited funds to spend 40 million quid. And just for somebody, I mean, he runs fast and brings chaos. What? I mean, is that what you pay 40 million for? It's a strange one. And when I look at Traore against other teams, he doesn't give anywhere near other teams the problems that he has against Tottenham.
I do think if he's going
to play 2 games a season really well against Tottenham and he's suddenly playing for Tottenham, that means he'll never play a good game all season. So, I mean, perhaps we buy him and loan him to play against us just so he has 2 good games a season again. It's bizarre. It really is bizarre.
Jake, let's finish up with you on Traore. Stefan on the screen there says he can play a variety of positions, including right wing back. This one for me, I'm in a real difficult position with it because number one, I want to support the manager in terms of whoever the manager wants. I want us to get him, but at the same time, I do think to myself, you want to bring a player in that's going to improve the first 11. Otherwise, what's the point? That's essentially what's the point. We've got Moura, we've got Bergwijn, and we've obviously let Lamela go over the summer. At the end of the day, does he, in your mind, when you look at it as an 11, is it a case where he will bring that aspect of terrifying defenders and he will be able to say, as I said to you earlier, the likes of Kane, Son are potent finishers in the team. That's their job.
I would say the only thing, two things. One, he can offer balance. I remember years ago, this obviously you'll understand from the reference how far back I'm going, but Bale was not much at all when Lennon wasn't there. We needed that balance. And if we are going to play driving forward, and if we're going to play, I don't know, maybe Son behind Kane, and we can have the four of them charging up the pitch, and Traore is one of them, then maybe it works. Maybe Nuno's seen something to know what he was missing at Wolves, and we've got what he needs. Yep. The other argument could be that maybe Traore is all that Matt Doherty needs to be able to play football again, because it worked. So maybe that's just a partnership that he knows works, and maybe that means suddenly we then do have two right backs because these two have a connection and a relationship that works.
It's a good point to look at.
That's an argument.
It's a good point to look at. It's a good point to look at for sure. We'll see that one. We'll rumble on.
Just one more, Rick. In terms of your 40 million, and again, it's not a prejudice against him particularly. How many goals did Bale score last year for us?
He got into double figures, didn't he?
And how many did Vinicius score, albeit in a poor competition?
Oh, yeah, I think EU as well. 8, 9,
both
10.
got double figures, didn't they? Did Bale get about 50? I think between them, probably about 25 goals.
I did, yeah.
And we need to replace those 25 goals, because it's all right to keep Kane, but we have not replaced Vinicius and we haven't replaced Bale's output. So there's 25 goals there, and Traore is not going to bring you your 25 goals, not being funny. So, we let Danny Ings go to Aston Villa for 25 million, and we're talking about 40 million for Traore. It is utterly, utterly bizarre, and we have to replace those guys, because if Kane picks up a knock tomorrow, and we know he does it, we are back, by the looks of it, we are back to Son being our striker. And we all know he's not a striker. Yes, he comes in and does that role. But when Son is the striker, then he's not that wide player. So, I'd sooner spend 40 million on addressing the gap that the Bale goals and the Vinicius goals have left us with.
I totally agree. That's the thing I can't get my head around. We could be spending 40 million on a player that is not a striker. Yes, they've described it as a support striker, but the goals, where are those goals coming from? Where are those goals coming from? And, Spurs that have been, we've seen this window linked with the likes of Lautaro Martinez, Vlahovic, who are, again, that's an incredible level, Matt. But ultimately, when this window shuts, you want to feel like you've improved certain areas of the pitch. And, for Spurs to, be in a situation where they haven't even replaced Vinicius, who is the alternative to Kane, would that be deemed as a failure for you if we don't do that? If we don't have another striker in?
Yeah, how many times have we been here in the last 3 or 4 years where we said, finally, we've got a backup striker in, finally, we've someone for Kane. Yet every single season, time and time again, I don't know how we do it, but we end up in a situation where, again, we need to get that backup striker. And you mentioned Lautaro Martinez there. We bid £65 million for him. Why isn't that money being invested in a different striker? Because just because we're not getting Martinez doesn't mean we don't need a striker. We need a striker just as much as we would if Kane had left and Martinez had come in. We need somebody else. And it's not like they can say the money isn't there. It's not like they can say the options aren't there. Like Jason mentioned, Danny Ings for 25 million. If you want Traore for 40, get him. Then get Ings for 25. And that's your 65 million. The money is there. I don't know how it's there. And I question how it's there. But if we're not making that bid.
Just on Ings, people say, well, he's gone for 150 grand a week. We wouldn't want to pay him that. And I understand that principle, but if you're only paying 25 million as a transfer fee, which for Danny Ings, let's be fair, is a ridiculous fee. It's a ridiculous fee. And we didn't have to worry about Aston Villa. We could have just gone to Villa and said, to Southampton and said, we'll pay you 30 million. And they'd have rejected Villa's bid. And at 30 million, he was cheap. And people say he wouldn't have come. But you'd have said to him, well, we're selling Kane to Man City. And you make sure he comes.
Yeah.
You make sure he comes, and he would have probably thought, if they're buying me, perhaps they are selling Kane. So, you'd have got him. And he could play alongside Kane.
Yeah.
It's just, we can't argue it now. It's done. But that, to me, is the most ridiculous thing in this whole transfer window, that we have missed out a chance, finally, to get in a real quality alternative striker. And
proving the Premier League as well.
Yeah, and you know what? Kane would have felt that pressure himself. Geez, even just a little bit, and think, if I go 4 or 5 games without a goal, this bloke can come in and replace me. do you know what? And he might just kick him as well.
Agree. I totally agree. Guys, for our listeners that are on audio, we are going to go for our final break of the show. Taking into this break, we've got a great preview from the Hornets' nest of Watford that are going to be previewing the game to come at the weekend. For our listeners on YouTube, we're getting straight into that now. It is Watford at the weekend. It's the Danny Rose reunion that Jason McGovern can't wait for. And Jake looks like he's getting excited about it as well.
No, I am excited. I was even need a wee. So I'm going to go for an actual break and I'll be back.
Jake's actually going for an actual break. We are actually carrying on here as we mean to go along. And we're going to start, Jace, by, discussing Watford to come because they returned back into the Premier League in a real swift manner after being relegated in the 2019-20 season. After a fantastic campaign back in the Championship, they were promoted to the Premier League and made a wonderful start to their beginning with a 3-2 win against Aston Villa on the opening day. Obviously, they face now a real tough test in Spurs, coming to, of course, our home. Jace, thoughts on this one? How do you see it going?
Well, this is a much bigger test. Like I said all along, this is a bigger test for me than Manchester City because Manchester City's, you almost kind of get given a free hit that, if it goes wrong against Manchester City, everyone will say, well, it's Manchester City. But Watford, and even Wolves last week was going to be a tough game. But Watford, we are expected to beat. We are expected to be on the front foot. The pressure is all on us. And let's be honest, we should, if we have aspirations of being in that top four this season or improving our points tally, we have to beat Watford. Simple as that. So the pressure is on us. And I do expect us to beat Watford. Just in terms of the Danny Rose thing, I'm sure he'll get a fantastic reception. And it's interesting because, what Danny Rose did that summer was far worse for me than all the stories about Kane. It was it was a direct thing, wasn't it? The newspaper articles,
the dressing room,
pay me what I'm worth, and things like that. And yet, lots and lots and lots of people forgave Danny Rose, and they still call him now a club legend because he goes to under 23 games at Stevenage. And fair play to him. That was nice to see. Don't get me wrong. So, good luck to him. Watford have been a bit yo-yo over the past couple of seasons, haven't they? Deeney, we know, is an absolute handful, but it's not somebody that you should be panicking over because, again, he actually doesn't score that many goals, Troy Deeney, but he might well cause chaos for other people. But, I want to see us on that front foot, dominating that game. And that's important for me, particularly when you're at home to teams like that.
Yeah. Matt, let's come around to you. I mean, Watford, they came crashing down to earth really against Brighton. That 2-0 defeat showing that, they're a side, not to be taken lightly, but they were being overpowered and dominated by the Brighton team. And, they're currently obviously 11th place at the moment. It's hard to really look at the table, but taking on one of the traditional top six from Tottenham, this is going to be a challenge now for Watford, of course. It's a new, fairly new squad, new manager there in terms of some degree coming to a Premier League. What would you like to see Spurs do from their end? Would you expect to see a more expansive brand of football? I think that's been the only thing for Nuno so far. We've seen that criticism of him in terms of last week against Wolves. There was a feeling, I think, around that, whilst it was great to show that grit, determination, character to grind out the win, I think many wanted to see more of an expansive brand of football. Do you expect, as Jason often puts it, front foot football? Do you expect to see that against Watford at the weekend?
Yeah, I do. And I'd be pretty disappointed if we don't, because I think Jason put it perfectly earlier on when he said, sitting behind the ball and playing defensive football is one thing, but being forced to do that and actually being pinned back is a very different thing. And I think if we take a lead here in this game or within the last 10, 15 minutes, depending how we're playing then, I think we can get a good insight into how we're going to be playing throughout the season. But it's a challenge for this team that, of course, we haven't had in the league this season, where we're going into a game expecting to win it. So you're playing Man City. I think I can speak for the majority of Spurs fans saying I didn't expect to be coming out of that with 3 points. And that game against Wolves at Molineux, despite our relatively good record there, is always a big challenge. So going into this one expecting to win, it'll be interesting to see how Nuno kind of prepares the players in terms of their mentality and things like that. And I'd be hoping for a very quick start and maybe being 2 goals up by half time and actually having that luxury of being able to be a bit more comfortable, not sitting back behind the ball, but not having to really push for that goal in the second half and be comfortable in that. But to be honest, I expect it because we're still kind of in that honeymoon period with Nuno, even though it's been so long since he's been appointed. It's only his 3rd league game, so I think we will see another incredible performance from the players. There could be that bit of grit and determination, but I expect a lot more quality on the front foot going forward as well. And Harry Kane back in the Premier League squad is going to be a massive boost for everybody. And just getting off to a good start, I think, is all that we need in this one.
Yeah, agree. In terms of Watford team news, we know central midfielder Juraj Kuka is expected to remain out of action until the start of November with a leg injury. Troy Deeney, as Jason mentioned earlier, he's actually expected to be back for this game. Potentially, like I say, could be starting. This veteran keeper, Ben Foster, will maybe be replaced by Daniel. Well, apparently he might be replaced by number 1, Daniel
I forgot
Bachmann.
Ben Foster.
Yeah.
I forgot Ben Foster, but he wears our new away shirt, doesn't he? Ben Foster does videos in a Spurs shirt. It's bizarre.
King of time wasting. Yeah, the king of time wasting.
I can't watch 25 goal kicks by Ben Foster again.
Oh
please.
my God, with the time wasted. Oh, how often was that? For West Brom, for Watford, we've been there, we've seen it. Tom Cleverley, another one that could also start for the Hornets at the weekend against Spurs, and highly rated Ismail Assar could also come into the team. So it won't be easy. There's some decent players there at Watford, Jake. I mean, how do you view this one for you? It won't be easy, will it? I think, although they're a promoted team, these clubs, they come to try and prove a point. I'll be interested to see how Tottenham may look to break them down. Are Watford going to come with an intent to sit back? How Spurs are going to cope with that? Do you think we will see, as I said to Matt, more of an expansive brand of football from Nuno to try and break the Watford team down?
I hope so, because I think they are going to come at us. We are, for whatever reason, Tottenham is that team where people decide they're going to show up and have the game of their season against us, and we just sort of got to ignore that and make them play our style, because so many times we've let, no matter what level of club, come to us and sort of dominate when we're at home, which is mad. When again, like I said earlier, the talent we have up there, why we would ever try and sit back when you've got probably the best striker in the world up the top. It blows my mind. I don't think we will. I think that the whole thing about Tottenham this time has been the let's play attacking football. We're going to change our style. We're going to go back to Tottenham, back to what we are. And I think we would happily, realistically be sat here now, currently in the league with 2 points, having drawn at home to City and drawn away at Wolves. Not happy, but we would not have been able to complain because it's 2 difficult fixtures. And then this one would have been the one we expected to get our first win, already having 2 wins under our belt. I came back. I know they've got players back, but I mean, we've got Kane back. I mean, you can't compete with that.
Yeah.
I'm predicting. Are we doing that yet? Are we doing the predictions?
We're doing that right now. Yeah, go for it. Yeah. Go for it.
I'm going for a 3-1 because I'm sure we've got to let in a goal at some point. And I imagine that's what's going to be. Of course, it will be against Watford. And I think, I think 3-1. I think we'll, and I think basically they'll get us on the break, but ultimately be us dominating.
Okay, we'll take that 3-1. Let's go around to you, Matt. What are you predicting for this one?
Oh, I want to predict a clean sheet. I'll be honest, Jake. I think we've been so good at the back.
3 friendly games in a row, clean sheet. Wouldn't that be lovely for Hugo as well?
God, doesn't happen often, does it?
It doesn't happen. No, it doesn't.
I'm going to stay confident. I'll go 3-0.
3-0. Okay, another clean sheet will be the 3rd for Spurs on the bounce. I want to say for Tottenham, that's got to be close to a club record. I can't imagine the last time Spurs have got 3 games without conceding. Jace, what are you going for this one?
I like Jake's one, 3-1. I quite like the sound of that. Yeah, I'll go with that one.
So we are going to concede. We're going to concede our first Premier League goal of the season, Jace. You reckon?
Yeah, just at some stage, I think Deeney at a set piece. If Deeney's on the pitch, there's that. It'll be interesting to see if he does pick Romero. That'll be interesting to see. Will he bring Romero in, or will he go with Sanchez and Dyer? And actually, even if it's Sanchez, we've seen him sometimes get sucked into the physical battle too much, and when he does that, he tends to lose concentration, and quite often he loses those physical battles. Yeah. So, it'd be interesting to see if Deeney starts or he's just a bench option for them. But yeah, 3-1, I quite like the sound of that.
Okay, we'll go with that. I'm going to go for... I'm going to back this. I'm going to go with Matt. I'm actually going to keep back as to keep another clean sheet. I'm going to go for 3-0 Spurs. What's going on? I'll tell you what, this positivity that Nuno's bringing at the moment. Gotta love it. Although, like I say, my mood will definitely be predicted by how the next few days go in the summer transfer window. Jason's favourite subject that we've had to carry on in his absence. Love the summer transfer window. Loving all the rumours. Tuto Mercato, Calcio Mercato, you name it. Jason absolutely adores them. I've got to say a wonderful thanks to our panel. We've been up very, very late in the evening to record the wonderful Jake Lambert. Jake, thank you ever so much. We're looking forward to seeing you back on the gig scene soon, I'm hoping.
Oh, yeah, I'll be out there, mate. And hopefully back on this for another, Europa Conference League game. I'm here.
We'll try and make it happen. There's a queue for this, Jake. I tell you, there's a 2,000 people waiting list for this. I tell you, we have to try and calm them all down and take them one by one. That's all. Big list for this one.
I like
Thank you
this
so much,
tag handle as well, little lost lad. I mean, you know, little
It
lost
describes a fair few Tottenham players, I can assure you.
I was going to ask if you
Harry Winks is trying to buy it off me.
I was going to say, did you copyright from Harry Winks at one point? Is that trademarked? I was going to ask you, but that's definitely for a different show. Also going to say a wonderful thanks to the wonderful Matt Hayes. Matt, keep up the superb work on your YouTube channel. Obviously love the content, and going to be hopefully a busy few days, Matt, we're hoping, right?
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. There's a few signings coming in. I know Mariva is looking good right now as well. But look, always a pleasure to come on chatting with you guys. I love the pod, and it's a real honour to be on here. So thanks a million for having me.
You're very kind, Matt. Thank you so much. And Jace, I'll see you actually in person in a couple of days. I mean, this must be crazy. That means you're actually going to be spending transfer deadline day together. Are you sure you want to do this? Is it what else I'm in for?
You got your yellow tie, have you, for the evening?
I'm working on it. Are we sure we should be doing this?
You're coming in a breaking news T-shirt or something.
Definitely not Superman, I tell you. My God, honestly. But
I said, no, let's go and meet at somewhere that has no TV and we all just talk amongst ourselves. But you know, you're all obsessed and want Sky Sports News on all night. It's ridiculous.
Well, I tell you, depending on how that evening goes, we could be all singing Aloha by the time it all shuts off at 12 o'clock. We'll have to see 11 o'clock when that deadline is. Jace, as always, lovely having you back on the pod. Thank you so much.
Let's hope for 3 points Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday, isn't it? Yeah, Sunday.
Get used to the Sundays. They're not going anywhere now. I tell you, they're locked
Sunday
in
at 2.
Sundays.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of Sundays at 2 now, aren't there? That's the problem.
A lot of Sundays. Guys, most importantly, for our listeners all around the world, keep safe, keep well. For those still watching on YouTube, thank you ever so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And as always, come on, you Spurs.